Previously on Old School Lane Casual Chats. Hey, who are you?
You really don't know?
No, you sound familiar, but and I can't tell by the giant hoodie in the background that you're wearing. Tell everybody, who are you?
Well, I'm David, but you probably know me better on the sites as Brek Club 85 or the guy who really liked Cabin in the Woods.
There you go. I remember you. Yeah. What did you do with Kevin? Isn't Kevin supposed to be the usual guy around here for for casual chats? What did you do with him?
I think the Paradox got him this time.
No, the Paradox got him. He's probably there with Mr. Smooth and Jockerly 77. It was a very interesting game, the way it combined platforming with stealth. I'd never seen anything like that because you had games like Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid in which it was involved with stealth, in which it was very cinematic and very action-packed. But then when you have a game like Sly combining with that, and then you have like a fun story to go along with it, it was something really original.
I like to call the Sly games as Metal Gear Solid for kids.
There you go, yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, there could have been more possibilities. They could have been maybe a new adventure, or maybe something else to steal, or new villains.
Or Sly Team Racing.
Sly Team Racing. That would have been an interesting one. Maybe we can have like those little spy buggies just driving around and all over Paris and all over the places that the games were taking place in. That'll be kind of interesting. Kind of like what the way Crash Team Racing was in Jack X Combat Race. That would have been interesting. But I don't know. Do you think that Sucker Punch would have done a racing game similar to what Naughty Dog does with their racing games?
It would have been cool to see them try.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
I even said in a previous blog that I think the second Sly game is probably one of the darkest platformers ever made.
Next to Jak 2, definitely. With Sly, you kind of feel that presence to it, and then as time went on, it did get progressively darker, and then around the third game, it started getting a little bit lighter with the introduction of the other characters. So you had a lot of the characters. You had Sly, you had Murray, you had Bentley, you had Carmelita, and we have a very interesting love-hate relationship with Sly and Carmelita. So you had Clockwork, who was the villain. What was the name of the female character in Sly 3 who was kind of like the female version of Bentley? What was her name again?
Penelope.
Yeah, there you go, Penelope. I really wanted to know a lot more of her. She was really interesting. She had like the cool little gadget, but I just wish that she would have been brought out more instead of just being a female version of Bentley.
Well, you got your wish.
Well, crap. Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldsschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with manicexpression.com, thecomicbookcast.com, the reopened Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page, and the PlayStation YouTube channel. Welcome aboard to this week's episode of Casual Chats. As usual, I am Patricia, and I am back with our good friend from Manic Expression, David, a.k.a. Brek Club 85. Welcome back, David.
Hi.
Hi. Alright, so as you probably know, last year we did a Casual Chats podcast on the 3 Sly Cooper games in honor of Sly 4 Thieves in Time. So, yeah, we'll just be talking about it and how we feel about it overall. So, for those who haven't played it and you wish to, please stop listening to the podcast right now, go check it out, and then when you're done, come back here and play the game. Or you can just be a complete cheater, watch some videos on YouTube, and then come back here and probably get the same reward.
That's what everybody does.
Yeah, I know. It's funny enough that this game was made by not Sucker Punch. It was done by Sanzaru Games, which is
Sanzaru.
Yeah, Sanzaru Games, which was the company that did the Sly Cooper collection for the PS3.
I only ever played the original PS2 versions of each of the original 3. I never had the HD collection for the PS3.
I think it's just basically the same thing, with the exception of the PlayStation Move minigames and the HD graphics.
And they did add like a very short teaser if you collected everything for Sly 4.
Right, that too. Okay, so yeah, this game took place a couple of years right after Sly 3, and basically it talks about that the Thieves Raccoonus from the first game, as you probably know, it's been disappearing. So this game is pretty much about time travel, traveling to different places and meeting up with Sly's descendants. I mean, ancestors. Right, ancestors. I'm dumb. That's pretty much the gist of it. So, David, what were your favorite parts of the game?
Well, I guess in general, being able to play another Sly Cooper game was great, but I think some of my favorites were the Japan level and the England level, personally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that some of the levels, once again, they were able to be varied, similar to previous Sly Cooper games, especially Sly 3. The one thing that was really great about it was that they brought in some of the old characters back to the game. The one thing that I was really disappointed of was, Dimitri was in the game, but he didn't talk.
Which is weird, because the original teaser trailer focused on him.
Yeah.
The part where it looks like it's Sly running, but then it turns out it's Dimitri.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what happened during the creation of the game. Maybe the guy who voiced him, maybe there was some sort of trouble or some difficulties along the way, so maybe that's why they had to cut him off.
Which is weird, because if you look in the end credits, his old voice actor is still credited.
Yeah, I did notice that. Maybe at some point, maybe we'll find out, but for now, it is still a mystery. So, yeah, another thing that we were complaining about in the Sly Cooper podcast was that there wasn't a consistent voice actress for Carmelita Fox. In one game, she was Hispanic. The other game, she was, Americanized. So now they've gone back into their roots and having her in a Spanish accent, voiced by Gray Delisle.
I was fine with the changing voice actors thing, and I thought Gray did a pretty good job. If she ends up being, the permanent voice, if they do another sequel, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I would be too. The stealth modes and the bosses, which in itself were really, really good. I would say that it's probably up there with maybe Sly 3, as the boss battles were very diverse. You were able to deal with different weapons, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll say the ancestors, compared to Sly 3, I don't think they had... This is the issue a lot of fans had, where all the new characters in 3 kind of took too much of the spotlight off Sly, but the ancestors in this one didn't really, just because they're only in one level each.
Yeah, it kind of definitely reminds me of Eternal Darkness, in which you get to play as one of the protagonist's ancestors, and you go through each of the games in different time periods with different characters, and they deal with different movesets. So
I think for me, Sly 3 was to the PS2 what Spyro Year of the Dragon was to the PS1.
Yeah, it definitely makes a little bit more sense, because it was able to bring out basically the best of what that series had. Even though that technically I would always count as Sly 2 as my all-time favorite, but...
Yeah, I still think 2 is my favorite of the original trilogy.
Yeah. But in itself, I do think that there were some great things about Sly 3 that definitely improves on the second game. Like, for example, more levels, more variety, and more characters. I do believe that the characters from Sly 3 were fine, and I do agree with you, David, that the ancestors were a lot more interesting. I think it's due to the fact that they are the ancestors of Sly Cooper, and we were able to at least get to know a little bit about their backstory throughout the games because of the Thieves Raccoonus and the family line with, them all being thieves. So it kind of was a little bit of backstory and knowing these characters, while in Sly 3 we didn't know anything about these characters that were never brought up. And with the exception of maybe a few characters that were in Sly 4, we never saw a lot of them again.
Well, I think at the time, like during the original trilogy, I don't think any of us ever actually expected to meet these characters, so...
Yeah, it definitely, once going back to Spyro, they also added some additional characters in Spyro 2, and there were some characters that were great, and then there were some characters that were thrown in that didn't really do anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like, in Sly 3, you get to play all the other different characters, and similar to Spyro 3, in which you get to play all the different characters. But it's still fun to play as either Spensley or Murray.
The one thing that did kind of disappoint me about 3 is that you could only play as the characters besides Sly, Bentley, or Murray, only when it was mission-specific.
Yeah, that is true. It's not like you can be able to switch between the characters at any time that you want.
Like, with Penelope, I get it, because you were only controlling her vehicles, and Dimitri, you only played underwater, but Guru or Panda King, I thought they would let you do more with.
Yeah, which is a shame, because, as we said in the last podcast about Panda King, he was, like, one of the best characters in Sly 3.
And he's, like, the only one of the Cooper gang who isn't even mentioned in this game. Like, even the Guru gets a slight cameo here.
Right, which is kind of disappointing, to say the least. Just like with previous installments, you get to be able to do some stealth and do some side missions, but there are some different things to it. Like, for example, in these games, there are more secrets, there's more treasures, and, for some of you people out there, you can be able to have the game played on the PS Vita. I don't have a PS Vita, do you?
I do.
Okay, so were you able to play the PS Vita alongside with Sly Thieves in Time?
I haven't played both versions. There actually really isn't that much of a difference.
Oh, okay. I didn't think so because, let's be honest, there are very rare exceptions in which you go from the console version to the handheld, and they're completely different. I can understand different levels to cater towards maybe like the handhelds, kind of like if you play Sonic Generations. If you play the 3DS version, there's some levels that are featured in Sonic Rush. But other than that, there really wasn't any handhelds for the Sly series, so you're not going to see any specific levels that came from any of the handhelds.
No, like, it's pretty much identical to the PS3 version, so...
Right. I really like the different levels that were featured. Japan was one of my all-time favorites, even though that it was actually one of the first. And England was really cool, but another one that I really liked was Arabia. I really liked Arabia.
Yeah. I'd honestly say my least favorite might just been the prehistoric level.
Yeah, I didn't like the prehistoric level either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I just felt that it wasn't as memorable as the other previous levels.
Mm-hmm.
But to say the least, all the other levels were pretty good. They were well designed, and I don't know about you, but I also liked some of the music in it. Not as much as all the others from the previous games, but I did like it okay.
Yeah. Say, speaking of the levels, do you know about the Easter egg that's hidden in every level?
I do know about one or two of them, but not all of them.
Well, there's one thing, like, do you know about that little secret cameo, if you will?
No, I do not know about that one. Please.
Well, okay, I guess, like, it's not really anything specific to the plot, but I guess I'll tell you is that on all 5 of the main levels, during certain missions, if you go through your binocucom, if you look at specific spots, you actually can see clockwork in the background of every level.
Oh, wow. Clockwork? Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I can give you the YouTube link after this. But
definitely.
As a little treat for the fans, he's hidden in the background of every level. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah, I did not know that. I'll definitely have to look it up again next time that I play it. All right, so the one thing that really was impressive for me is that they got the majority of the voice actors who were on the previous games back, especially the people who voiced Sly, Bentley, and Murray.
Yeah, the thing about the original trilogy is that most of the voice actors from the original trilogy were just company locals, or weren't really any big voice acting names, but for all the new characters in this game, they got a lot of the big voice actresses and actors like Ray Delisle, they got Nolan North, they got Yuri Lowenthal.
And Steve Bloom is in it as well.
Yeah.
There's this one quote that I really like from a podcast series that I listen to every week called Talkin' Tunes with Rob Paulson. It's around the late 90s or 2000s, a lot of the voice acting in video games were either really bad just by local people who were either starting out or never done any voice acting again, or it was just basically blood-curdling, in which it was just mostly screaming. So, there's a group of people who are in the voice acting community who are known for just doing voice acting in specific video games. Like we mentioned before, like Nolan North and Yuri Lowenthal and Steve Bloom. In fact, Steve Bloom currently has the world record of being the most prominent voice actor in video games.
And also there was... Actually, if you look into the original trilogy, Dimitri's voice actor voiced 4 other villains in those games.
Yeah, I also noticed that as well. What do you think of the different stealth modes as compared to the previous games?
Well, I think there was some nice variety. I like the time slowing down you could do in the Arabia level.
Yeah, it definitely kind of reminded me of the time slowing mechanic from Ratchet and Clank Future: A Crack in Time. But yeah, I think slowing down time is a really great addition to the stealth series, in which if you just need a little bit of time in order for you to get away and hide somewhere, it is crucial, because if you probably remember from previous installments, even if you get caught just a little bit, the enemies would swarm all over you, and Sly did not exactly have a large health meter.
I would honestly say this game is maybe easier than the previous two.
Well, I can understand why it's easier, because I think Sly 4 is definitely the most mainstreamed of the other games, because around the PS2 era, there were so many 3D platformers out there. You had the Jak and Daxter series, you had the Ratchet and Clank series, and the Sly series was kind of like that underground cult fan base kind of series, in which only a few people know about it, but I think as time went on, more and more people started to discover it. And to be honest, it's when I talk to people who know about Insomniac or Naughty Dog, they only know about, those other companies from their other games, such as, if you are a fan of Naughty Dog, most people nowadays know them for the Uncharted series, as opposed to just the Crash series or the Jak and Daxter series.
Well, to be fair, the last Crash game they did was in '99, so...
Yes, that is true. Speaking of Crash, did you see that little Easter egg that was on, I think it was on a magazine, that it could be a possibility that Sony may have gotten back the rights to the Crash series?
I haven't seen that. Maybe you could link it to me later, but I'd be glad to see them do it. I honestly think, I don't hate all of the post-Naughty Dog Crash games. I actually really like Twinsanity. I think the last good Crash game was Tag Team Racing in 2005.
You mean the one that they brought in Spyro as well?
No, Tag Team Racing. It was on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox.
Oh, I've never...
It was set in the amusement park.
I've never played that game, but it definitely sounds like they were trying to...
It was actually developed by the same people who did The Simpsons Hit and Run.
Because
and when you play the two games, it actually kind of feels similar. They actually use some of the same sound effects, and just the free roaming you can do, because unlike the Crash Team Racing and Crash Nitro Kart, in Tag Team Racing you can explore basically a hub world on foot, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah, the name Crash Double Team Racing, it definitely reminded me of Mario Kart Double Dash. I think that's where they got the idea from.
Yeah.
So I was gonna
but,
say.
Okay, back to Sly 4. What
Yes,
did you think of the new villains?
The new villains are okay. They're definitely not as memorable as, say, Clockwork.
Well, like, if you might remember, a month or so ago, I did a countdown of the top 8 Sly villains.
Yes.
I gave the number 1 spot to Neela from 2.
Yes, that is definitely deserving.
I gave the number 2 spot to General Cell from the 3rd game.
Oh, okay. General Cell, yeah, that was a pretty good villain. Were there any villains from Sly 4 that was featured on your list?
I gave it to the Paradox, I think the 5th or 6th position.
Yeah.
And the number 3, I gave the one that kind of ticked you off.
Oh! We have to talk about it, don't we?
Yeah, maybe we should, talk about what we were thinking before this game came out, and then let's talk about what happened.
Oh, yes, let's do so. Okay.
Okay, honestly, before Sly 4 came out, I actually thought they were going to pull one of the gang turns evil twist, but I was actually thinking it would have been somebody else. I thought they were going to make Dimitri evil.
That's what I was thinking of, too, because Dimitri was evil in Sly 2. And I thought...
I thought the fact that he was being left in the present was going to lead to something, like, maybe he was going to read the CDs raccoons as it came back and go crazy.
Yeah, I thought so, too, because Dimitri, he's very unpredictable. You never know what he's going to do. And I thought that he was going to go back into his villainous ways. But at the same time, stay cool. And
but at the same time, Dimitri was he's too funny to be a main villain.
Well, you have to think of Varric from Legend of Korra.
And even then, Varric really wasn't a threat in the end.
I know he wasn't a threat, but maybe he would have been like a side villain, similar to, how he was in Sly 2.
I mean, Varric, the thing is, he's very entertaining, but his story kind of led to nothing.
Yeah, it is true, but I think that maybe if they do bring Varric back on Season 3, maybe they'll answer some questions, but yeah, his story pretty much did lead to nothing. Alright, so let's get the elephant out of the room, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, so as you probably listened to in the intro, I predicted that I wanted to have something interesting happen to Penelope, because she had good potential. She was sort of like the female version of Bentley, but I felt like there wasn't enough levels dedicated to her, and I felt that the connection between her and Bentley just wasn't fleshed out enough. But then they decided to make her a villain. I did not see that coming.
Playing the level, I actually picked up on the clues where, if you're really paying attention, you'll kind of figure out she's turned evil before the big reveal. She's in another dark armored persona in this game. The Black Knight, remember in 3, she was the Black Baron. Mm-hmm. If you look on the Black Knight's armor, you see an emblem that looks like Penelope's head. And you know how each character in the Sly series, whenever they talk, they have a different colored subtitle?
Yes.
The Black Knight's subtitles were the same color as Penelope's from 3.
Yes, I did notice that, and when re-looking at it again, it was a really nice touch. It's kind of similar to the episode of Batman the Animated Series, Perchance to Dream, in which the music from one of the villains from the show, I'm not going to spoil who it is, it turns out to be the faux Batman, and he was the one who basically brought Batman into the what-if scenario if Batman was Bruce Wayne and his parents were alive. But yeah, I should have noticed that from the get-go.
And also, just like when you listen to the Black Knight's voice, even though it's ultra distorted, you can sort of make out Penelope's accent.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, they're really nice touches. Mm-hmm. Because if you're a fan of the Sly Cooper series, and you are able to decipher on who was the Black Knight, you can be able to pinpoint on who was behind it. But if you're a dummy like me, it'll take you until the big reveal to find out who was behind it all. And to tell you the truth, I'm going to give off my full opinion on what I thought about it. It was a really nice twist. I was pretty shocked by it, and I was kind of a little saddened, but as time went on throughout the game, I kind of accepted it little by little. But I'm just hoping that if they ever do a Sly 5 or a Sly 6 that features a little bit on Penelope, maybe we can find out more into why she decided to do what she did. I know why she decided to do it, but it would be nice if maybe we can get a little bit more backstory.
Honestly, honestly, I think if they do a Sly 5, I would like to see, like, Penelope maybe bring back Clockwork.
That would be kind of interesting. A nice way of fleshing out and bringing back old characters again.
I was never against a twist. Like, I know it's like the one plot point that got a load of backlash, but...
Yeah, I was actually, when playing the game, I wanted to ask you about how you felt about it, because, oh man, when the twist was revealed, there were so many people who were really angry about it.
You know, like, and actually thinking back to Sly 3, it was one thing, like, if you think about it, during 3, before they recruit her, Penelope was, like, hosting an aerial tournament, like, dogfighting, and she was, like, just causing people to shoot at each other, and also there's that mission in 3 where you have to take out the Black Baron's guards, who are her own guards, when they found out she's, like, they're working for the other team, so it's like, Penelope is actually one of the most destructive members of the gang.
Yeah, I know. Go from a person who is basically a female version of one of the main characters to one of the most threatening villains in the series.
I just like how she's evil with a Minnesota accent.
Yeah, James, eat your heart out.
You could chop this up to writing issues, but, like, we never truly got to know what she's like in Sly 3, so maybe she did have that dark side the whole time.
Maybe she did. Maybe she felt overshadowed by all the other characters, and she wanted to have her chance to shine.
I think, like, once she's revealed as evil, her voice actress just hams it up so nicely. Yeah,
I know. What do you think of, like, over-the-top acting when it comes to villains? Because I think that there is some way you can be able to...
The Sly series is basically a video game equivalent of a Saturday morning cartoon.
True.
And that's what they've said they went for with the series, so going over the top makes sense.
Yes, it did make sense. After all, you play as a anthropomorphic raccoon.
And also, I thought the main villain, the Paradox, he worked as a main villain.
Yeah, he worked as a main villain, but he wasn't as memorable as, say, all the others that were from the previous series. Alright, another question I wanted to ask. Now that the Sly series has moved from Sucker Punch to Sanzaru, what did you think of how they did the game?
You know, honestly, if I didn't know it was another company, I would have assumed it was still Sucker Punch. It feels almost exactly like the old games.
Yeah, which in itself is a rarity. Most companies, whenever they do a specific video game and then eventually the series is transferred over to another company, you can definitely tell the difference. Like, if you were to play the original Jak and Daxter games and then you go over to Daxter or Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier, you can definitely tell that it was done by a different company. It doesn't have that same charm or the same gameplay or even follow the same storyline. I think that Sanzaru Games definitely did their homework when they were doing Sly 4. And I think that without Sanzaru Games tackling in Sly 4 as well as the HD collection, I think that Sly Cooper would have still stayed as a, cult classic series that was always overshadowed by Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank.
Especially, I'm impressed that it feels so similar, especially since it's been 8 years since Sly 3. It almost feels like no time has passed. Like, if it took down the graphics to fit a few years ago, if this came out only like a year or two after 3, it would have felt like a natural progression even then.
Yeah, I think it would have been like a comeback to 3D platforming, which we've been getting a lot nowadays.
Since coming out this February, it was like one of the last like PlayStation exclusives, so probably like platformers. So if there's a 5th game, it'll probably be PS4 or PS Vita.
Yeah, definitely so. I don't know where the other platformer series is going. I mean, Jak and Daxter is not coming back anytime soon since the unveiling of a possible Uncharted 4, and Ratchet and Clank is currently going through a bit of a hiatus now that the movie's coming out. So, yeah, we'll definitely have to see where the Sly Cooper series stands. I think that the game definitely made a good amount of money, and there was some decent praises, so who knows, maybe we will get a possible...
And story-wise, it does end on a cliffhanger.
Yes, it does end on a cliffhanger, so we have to get at least a Sly 5 coming out.
And, this is my attitude when it comes to franchises is that I'm kind of different from James in that I feel if you have an idea, I honestly think a lot of franchises, whether they be movie, game, or TV show, could go on forever. Like, I'm always the person who says, make another sequel.
I guess so. It depends, because I feel that there are some things such as movies or TV shows or video games that are standalone and they're fine. But if you are smart enough and passionate enough to make a sequel that is just as good as the original, then I say go for it. But there are some times...
Like this fall, not only do I love Curse of Chucky, but when I learned just a few days ago there will be a 7th film, I'm like, all right, go for it.
So you're not like saying, oh no, please stop.
I honestly, all six of the Chucky movies have been good for me, and as far as I'm concerned, they could make like 6 more, and I'd be happy with that. It's like, you all know my love of the Kung Fu Panda series, and how I'm waiting for part 3.
Yeah.
They've said they're planning to do like at least 6 movies, and I'm like, 6 movies? Hell yeah, I'll make 6.
Yeah, because I know that each of the stories of the Kung Fu Panda series is supposed to be containing a story more about Po and the Furious Five and all the villains, so I can understand that. Although I haven't really seen a lot of new episodes of Legend of Awesomeness lately.
I think that they have some plan, the show isn't canceled or anything, there's still a season to go at least.
Yeah, because I do know that when it comes to DreamWorks movies, Monsters vs. Aliens, the TV series, has been canceled.
Well, the Penguins of Madagascar. I'm not sure if that's still going, but
it hasn't. It's not going anymore. It's done.
But it got a lot of episodes during its run. So.
Yes, it did. Surprisingly, given the fact that there were only 3 movies and a couple of spin-offs with the Penguins, so it did a pretty good job. And I think that
the Penguins movie is coming in 2015.
That too. I'm surprised that the Penguins of Madagascar did eventually cancel because the movie's coming out. Maybe they would have taken a hiatus. Maybe
they'll do a special around the time the movie comes out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that.
I mean, I'm not saying you should never end. If Sly 3 never got a sequel, I'd be fine with that. But I'm just I think you can always do a sequel. With the Scream series, because they weren't going to do a part 4. It wasn't announced until 2008, and had there never been another Scream after Scream 3, I would have been satisfied, but I'm glad Scream 4 was made, ultimately.
Yeah, because from what I understand, I've never seen any of the Scream movies, but from what I've heard, I think Scream 3 was the weakest in the franchise.
Yeah, it's I still liked it, but I definitely agree it's the weakest, and Scream 4, it's also impressive because, Scream 3, it resolved the main story, so Scream 4 is just a continuation more so than the next chapter. But I think Scream 4 is proof that you can make a good sequel even when you've already tied up all the loose ends.
True. Let me ask you a question regarding about that. If Sly 4 never existed, how would you feel about Sly Cooper having a reboot?
The thing about video games is, do they really ever reboot video games?
Yeah, they do reboot video games numerous times. For example, if you take a look at Bionic Commando for the NES, there was a reboot called Bionic Commando Rearmed for the Xbox 360. And also, when you think about going all the way back to 17 years ago, Star Fox 64 was a reboot to the Star Fox game on the Super Nintendo.
Really? Because most people from what I hear, just view Star Fox 64 as a sequel.
It's not a sequel. It is a reboot. It is still the same plot in which you take down Andros and you go through various planets and eventually end up in Venom.
My attitude towards reboots in general is that they're not inherently bad, but if I had the choice between a reboot and a sequel, I'd always choose the sequel.
I did an entire video, well, actually, I did a podcast with the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios admins about reboots and revivals. And I was talking about that there have been rumors of certain Nickelodeon shows of getting revived or rebooted. Rugrats, Danny Phantom, Wild Thornberrys. And I thought to myself, unless they do some new things to keep it fresh and relevant to today's kids, I don't think they should ever do it. Because what's there to bring back that is not going to change or is going to keep the series from being stale? And I think it's the same thing for video games. For example, going back to Bionic Commando.
Things like the Sly Cooper series, it's not like they're tackling social issues or anything, so...
No, not
that's
really.
It's supposed to be a commentary on today's events, so...
Yeah, I guess so. It definitely should be. And also, not to mention that it was pretty much bringing in a much more kid-friendlier version of stealth games, which were popular back then.
It's Metal Gear Solid for kids with animals.
Yes, Metal Gear Solid for kids with animals. That is true.
Going back to the characters, who was your favorite of the ancestors?
I think definitely my favorite out of the ancestors would... I don't know. They were... Like I said...
I would go with Galeth, personally. He was the funniest.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Because all of them, they all had different personalities, and they all had different quirks, and they were from different time periods. But yeah, I liked Galeth the best.
Salim Al-Kupar was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Ryoichi was cool. Tennessee Kid, I was fine with him. He wasn't my favorite, but I was okay.
I didn't really care for that character, but I can understand why some people might enjoy him.
Looking on the fan polls, of the 5 ancestors introduced in Thieves in Time, it actually seems that Tennessee is the most popular.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I thought that would be the one of the least favorite characters. Huh.
I think Bob got the short end of the stick there.
Bob. Yeah. Bob.
And also, there's... The Arabia level has the Carmelita minigame.
I don't know. And don't get me wrong, I like the Arabian level, but let's be honest, I've never really been too much of a fan of the mini games that were featured in the Sly series. If you go back to the Sly HD collection, I do know about the mini games that they feature for the PlayStation Move and how unnecessary they were. So I don't know. I think that it could have definitely would have been replaced for maybe another side mission or something.
I was talking about the fact that you're essentially having Carmelita do a belly dance.
Yeah, for kids. Is there anything else we can talk about the game?
Well, like I said, if they did a 5th game, what would you want from it?
I wanted to do the same thing that it did for 4. Progress the series more, finish up the storyline, and bring in some...
I meant in terms of story.
Oh, in terms of story, I don't know. I mean, it ended on a cliffhanger, so...
I'm not sure if I would want a 2nd game based around time travel, but
No, but I wanted to finish off the story.
kind of suggest it would have to be.
True, but I wanted to at least finish that plot point that was, featured as in the ending. But if they don't do time travel, that's fine with me. But I know that they are going to. Where would you rank Thieves in Time in the Sly games?
I would say maybe I would ranking all 4 games from favorite to the least, but I still really like all 4.
Yeah.
Sly 2 is the best. I would put Thieves in Time in 2nd place, 3 in 3rd place, and the original in last place.
I would probably do the same, with the exception of maybe moving it a little bit lower, because while I did like some things about it, there were a couple of things that it felt a little unnecessary. Like we said, the mini games, and there were some levels that weren't as memorable. Not to mention I didn't really care too much of Time Paradox, but yeah, I would say probably it's my 3rd favorite. The first one being my least favorite, but they're all good. Don't get us wrong; they're all really good.
Oh.
All right, so yeah, I think we can be able to conclude this episode. Do you have anything to plug or promote right before we go?
Well, there's coming in 2014. We're doing the 2-year movie I wrote, A Say in Scarlet.
Yes.
You all better watch. We're both in it.
Yes, we are both in it, and it will be a really interesting mystery noir film, and we'll definitely plug and promote it as soon as the movie is out. And I will post your top 8 favorite Sly villains on the description below so that people can read it. Tune in next time as we go into episode 25, and we will be talking about our favorite holiday specials and our least favorite holiday specials. David will be in it, as well as a few other members from Manic Expression. So until then, we will catch you in the next one. So bye.
Sayonara, y'all.